So I was reading this wonderful book written by our ex-president, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, which also turned quite controversial, the presidential years. So in this book, he has mentioned a few things, and I was fixated upon two of them personally. So one of which I'll be covering in today's video. Now, somewhere in this book, I guess in the ninth chapter, he mentions that Japan did not have a defense ministry in the year 2006. So, when I dug deeper into it, I found some things which I knew and also some things that were new for me. So, my reaction to those things initially was like that of Sheldon. Oh, interesting. What I found out was that not only did Japan not have a defense ministry in the year 2006, but it technically does not even have an armed forces today. So let's unravel the mysteries about Japan in today's video. So hello everyone, namaste, assalamu alaikum, sat shri akal, and this time in Japanese, konnichiwa. This is Vishal and welcome to our channel Indica Central. Over here we'll be discussing world history and current affairs from India's perspective. So when I say the phrase Japanese military, what comes to your mind? Is it this or is it this? So both of the imaginations are correct. If you follow current affairs, if you are aware of the Malabar exercises that are conducted between the navies of India, Japan, USA, and recently even Australia, you would likely imagine the first picture. On the other hand, if you are a history buff, you would imagine the second one. Now, as you know, Japan was a great imperial power until the Second World War. Until they took a stupid decision of bombing the Pearl Harbor, then bringing the US into the war, which beat the crap out of them, culminating in the two mushroom clouds at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So, at the end, in 1945, trials were held for all those charged of invasion, murder, human rights violations in Tokyo. And in these trials, one of the judges was an Indian. His name was Radha Vinod Pal. So, if you are interested and if you allow me to divert a little bit from the main topic, I would suggest that you watch his documentary on Netflix, that is Tokyo Trial. So, this person, Mr. Pal, he passed a dissenting judgment in the trials through which he expressed that all the convicted people should be set free without any charge. Now, why did he say so? There are legal reasons behind it, so I won't get into it right now. But if you're interested, as I said, you can watch the documentary, the series, and also there is a monument dedicated to him in Kyoto, Japan. So if you are living in Japan or if you happen to visit Japan, I would suggest to visit the monument once. So Douglas MacArthur, the Supreme Allied Commander, the commander of the Allied forces, who was responsible for the surrender in Japan, he was an American general and he dictated some of the very harsh terms to Japan for their surrender. So he insisted that after the surrender, Japan should not maintain any military whatsoever, not even for self-defense. So accordingly, when the new constitution for Japan was made, there was an article added into this constitution which stated that
Article 9. Aspiring sincerely to an international peace based on justice and order, the Japanese people forever renounce war as a sovereign right of the nation and the threat or use of force as means of settling international disputes. In order to accomplish the aim of the preceding paragraph, land, sea, and air forces, as well as other war potential, will never be maintained. The right or belligerency of the state will not be recognized.
so now you will ask me that if the Japanese constitution itself prohibits the country from keeping a military, then who participates in the Malabar exercises? So now read the text very carefully. There is a paragraph over there which says, in order to accomplish the aim of the preceding paragraph. So it is believed that this was added by the Japanese politician Hitoshi Ashida, which effectively makes the interpretation as whatever has been said in the previous paragraph, that is to accomplish war, only for that purpose the military cannot be used, which means that it can still be used for self-defense of the country. And this is the basis on which Japanese government could convince the United States for letting them have what is called as a self-defense force. So while we have the Indian armed forces, we have the Russian armed forces, we have the United States armed forces. In Japan, what we have is a Japanese self-defense force, not technically an armed force. So this came into being in the year 1954. Until then, protection of Japan was the responsibility solely of the US government, the US military. And in Japan, we also had something called as a National Police Reserve, that were a group of policemen with light infantry weapons basically. Now, this Japanese self-defense force, this comprises of all three units of any conventional military. That is the Japanese on-ground self-defense force, that is the army, then a maritime self-defense force, that is the navy, and an air self-defense force, that is the air force. But all these forces, this self-defense force was headed by a defense agency, and only in the year 2006, the Japanese parliament passed a bill through which all these came under a proper defense ministry. So what Pranab was trying to say in this book was that when he was India's defense minister in the year 2006, and when he visited Japan for defense cooperation, there was no counterpart to interact with him at the same level, at the ministry level. So basically, Indo-Japanese military cooperation at that time was a little bit difficult because of these bureaucratic hurdles. So this term self-defense force technically means a military, but on paper it is not referred to as so. So the difference is that as per the constitution, Japan cannot wage a war against another country. So while Pakistan can, and it did in the Kargil, Argentina can and it did in the Falklands, Japan cannot as per their constitution. So today, the Japanese self-defense force comprises of around 2.47 lakh active personnel and 56k reserve personnel. But this is far less for a country like Japan. But remember that in addition to these, Japan also has a presence of around 50k US troops. That is a post-World War II legacy. So Japan actually has the highest number of US soldiers abroad. And if the USA technically wants, it has enough strength that it can hold the country for ransom if it wants. It can't completely capture the country because even Japan has many soldiers in comparison, but at least it can control some parts of it for a while. So for a country like Japan, which is the world's third largest economy in terms of nominal GDP and fourth in terms of purchasing power parity, you realize that this military strength is far less. Japan's military size and expenditure both is far less. In fact, if I just show you the two lists comparing side by side, Japan's military size is actually even lesser than Sri Lanka for a comparison. But wait a second, isn't Japan the same country which is very close to a country ruled by an insane dictator, Kim Jong-un, who fires missiles anytime he wants without giving any warnings? Yeah. So here comes the big boss of the world, the United States of America. Now, as per a security treaty signed between the US and Japan in 1951 and then amended in 1960, US has the obligation to rescue Japan, to come to rescue of Japan whenever it is threatened by any external aggression. So this kind of makes Japan a subservient state to the US. So some questions that you can ask me now, that when will the presence of the US military in Japan end? Will it continue forever? Will the Japanese start taking care of their own? Will the Japanese self-defense force be renamed as the armed force? Now frankly, I can't answer any of these questions. I can just give my opinions. So the current Japanese government does not have any plans as of now to remove the US military forever. What they are doing instead is they are relocating the military within Japan and also outside Japan, but are still paying heavily for it, just as what Donald Trump wants it to. So I do feel that Japan should start taking care of its own, because it's not some small island in the Pacific. It's a very big economy and it can do so if it wants to. But now that the Quad has been formed and Japan, Australia, India and the US are in some sort of an alliance, so there is even more reason for the US to come to the military rescue of Japan. There is also some imminent threat to Japan from China. So we can only expect that the military cooperation between these two countries will increase in the future. Now, as far as the Japanese self-defense force is concerned, I feel that it should be renamed to the armed forces, and this constitution's article should be removed because it's just a vestige of the Second World War. It has no place today in the modern world. So that's all I can say as a part of my opinion. So I hope this video was of some help to you to answer some of your questions. Please show your appreciation by pressing the like button on this video. Please comment below if you have any query, if you want me to make videos on something else. Also, please subscribe to our channel Indica Central and press the bell icon at the side of the subscribe button to get the latest updates of all our videos. Also, we are on Twitter, so you can follow me, Vishal, at Vishal1296 and Indica Central at Indica Central on Twitter. So, thank you very much. Thanks for watching, and in Japanese, arigato gozaimashita.